Great. So as you all heard, this webinar will be recorded and available. We'll likely just send out a link once Zoom gives it to us and we get it uploaded onto our YouTube channel. That way you can feel free to share it with other facility colleagues that you may have as well. So again, thank you for joining. Today is Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I was wearing a ridiculous green shirt earlier that I took off for this meeting. I didn't know Sam was going to disable my video, so I would have left it on, but hope everybody's doing well and gets to enjoy a little bit of the holiday today. Holiday. I'm making this out to be a bigger deal than it is. Looked quickly at the attendee list here. It seems like there's a good amount of new participants. We're really excited to welcome a whole bunch of new facilities and capabilities into the TEAMER network for RFTS 3 and beyond. So welcome, and hopefully this webinar will be informational to you. For those of you who are already part of the network and have maybe listened into this webinar before or actually participated in TEAMER support activities, we have a couple new things to tell you about today, so I'm glad you're able to join. Like we said, if you're not, we'll be sending these updates out to the network as well, just so you're all aware of what to expect as we move through RFTS 3 and beyond. So with that, I'll go ahead and see if I can move my slides forward. Great. We'll start with a little background on what the TEAMER program is for those of you who may have been brought in without a full description. Essentially, the program is the U.S. Testing Expertise and Access for Marine Energy Research. The goals of the program are to provide access to testing infrastructure as well as access to world-class expertise at the host of different facilities across the country. We have both physical testing infrastructures as well as a lot of numerical modeling and analysis capabilities throughout the network. And then a long-term goal of the TEAMER program, and something we're still working on, and a challenge that we've been facing internally, is how we can implement consistent testing protocols across the network. We realize that facilities have there's a lot of variables that come into how testing is accomplished. So we don't have a full definition of what consistent testing protocols means, but we realize that we're going to have access to a wide range of testing over the program. And if we can get comparable data out of those, it'll be really useful to the industry and to those who support the industry. So we're working towards that goal throughout the course of the program. I forgot to mention, I just want to say, if there's any questions that come up during the presentation today, feel free to use the Q&A feature. It should be fairly straightforward as you're looking at your Zoom here. If you type questions in, Sam may be able to answer them in real time, or we'll focus on addressing them at the end of the presentation today. So yeah, hopefully didn't miss anything so far. Essentially, currently TEAMER is a 3-year testing campaign. We began our agreement with the Department of Energy back in December of 2019. 2020 was that blur of a year last year, where we started offering requests for technical support about halfway through the year, and we're now into obviously our third round of support to be offered, and the program is currently scheduled to go through that would be December of 2022, but we're likely to extend the time frame of that opportunity of the TEAMER program. We're working with the Department of Energy now on potentially doing that. So even projects that may begin towards the end of the 3 years will have the time and ability to finish if we don't get the extended time. So stay tuned for that. We're excited to be able to offer TEAMER for now and hopefully into the future. Currently, we have about $16 million budgeted for the program. Our goal is to support 100+ projects over the 3-year period, including 20+ facilities. That box has already been checked. We're really happy to include all of these different great facilities around the country, provide a lot of technical assistance to the marine energy developers and researchers through the 4 or 5 different categories that we have listed there: numerical modeling, lab and bench testing, tank testing, and open water testing to come. as well as working with devices or cross-cutting areas such as PTOs, grid integration, environmental effects, materials, and moorings. These are all opportunities that are supportive under TEAMER. Really the goal here is to provide access for testing and expertise to the industry at large. If there's ever questions about what's allowable, if a developer approaches any of the facilities with a request for support, and you're not quite sure whether it fits under the TEAMER banner, we get these questions a lot and we welcome them. Please feel free to reach out, either you or encourage the applicant to reach out to us to verify if it's worth going down that path, if it's something that we'll be able to support or not. Typically the answer is yes, but there has been some instances with traditional hydro type technologies that are flirting with the line of marine energy. There's some variance in how we describe and support offshore wind technologies. We don't support offshore wind technologies, but if there's components of an offshore wind system that have applicability to marine energy, marine hydrokinetic, we're still trying to get used to the new term marine energy is defined by the government. Then we're always happy to discuss and raise it higher up if we're not able to answer it ourselves. So, and then the last bullet there, one of the really big goals of TEAMER is to produce a lot of data that could be valuable to the industry. So it's working with the applicants and the facilities to identify what data is going to be collected through a test, and then ensuring that the reporting that comes out of the support periods provides that data in a clear and concise way that can be replicated or used by industry researchers or others moving forward. If you're new to TEAMER, TEAMER is much more than just the network director, which is what the Pacific Ocean Energy Trust represents. Again, I'm Matt Sanders, but Samantha Quinn also is my colleague that we work very closely together on this effort, as well as Jason Bush, the executive director of Pacific Ocean Energy Trust. But we also work with a network of folks that we refer to as the management team or the technical board. And the technical board is represented by folks from the DOE, Department of Energy's Water Power Technologies Office, as well as representatives from the National Marine Renewable Energy Centers, the NEMRICs, such as PMEC, which consists of Oregon State, University of Washington, University of Alaska Fairbanks, HIMRIC, which Hawaii National Resource, and then Southeast National Marine Renewable Energy Center as well, which is Florida Atlantic University. And we're aware of the new Atlantic Marine Energy Center. We're going to be talking with them over time to see if they are able to, and how we integrate them into TEAMER as well, potentially over time. And then we have representatives from the national laboratories on our technical board, specifically NREL, Sandia, and Pacific Northwest National Lab. All have representation on the technical board. And the technical board is really there to help us steer the guidance of the program, help us review applications, determine what fits within the goals of TEAMER. They're very crucial in the design of the program as well, help us identify data needs and access issues. So it's been a great opportunity to work with those partners and the continued relationship to make sure that TEAMER continues to run well and takes in suggestions and opportunities over time to expand its capabilities to the industry. And then we also have additional network partners down below. These are just examples, obviously, and this is where the facilities come in. As a facility in the TEAMER network, we consider you crucial to the importance of the program. Obviously, this is where the assistance is undertaken, and the data is provided to the applicant, to the recipients. So your participation is crucial, and we're very happy to have you and work with you over the course of this program. This is a graphic of kind of what the whole TEAMER process is. You're all likely familiar with this now, but essentially we give the application period from 30 to 60 days. RFTS 3 is going to be open from April 9th through May 9th this time. And then we do the 1.5 that you don't see here is the review period. We typically have taken approximately 2 months to review applications. All applications are reviewed by at least 3 independent reviewers. So we have a network of external reviewers that review applications based on technical merit and opportunity, value to the industry. Once we've down selected the applications, we then ask the applicants and the facilities to work together to complete a more formal test plan. So the application submitted essentially describes, it's submitted by the applicant, and it describes their technical objectives, what they're trying to get out of TEAMER support and why TEAMER support will be important to them and how it'll help their technology. It's left rather general. We don't ask for detailed specifics on the test plan at that point. We want to know what they're doing. We want to know how they're going to work with their facility to meet those objectives. Well, then once we approve them, and then we ask the facilities to submit a formal test plan. And there's a template available on the TEAMER website that anyone's welcome to look at now if you haven't already, that more specific questions around timing and data, and you know, things that are more specific. And that's the opportunity for the facility to really break down what their role is, how they're going to participate in this program, and then you know, essentially put together a more detailed budget as well, which will be how we essentially set our agreement, finalize the agreement between the facility and POET. And we'll talk more about that later in the presentation here. And then we move into once the test plan's approved. So test plans are submitted, and we have those test plans reviewed by the technical board. Some are said, great, let's move forward. We do reserve the right to ask for revisions or clarification in those test plans. So please expect that to be the case. That way we ensure, we're really just wanting to make sure that the test plan aligns with the application and that there's a you know, good set of data that we can expect to come out of that test plan as well. And that the test is planned for success. We understand that sometimes the applicant hadn't necessarily thought through all of the details of how you actually want to meet their objectives, rather were more general in their application. So we really try to nail down to the specifics in that test plan. And then we have the access period, the testing period, as you see here. We are happy to announce that we're now allowing up to 9 months of support as opposed to the previous 6 months. We heard from some facilities that 6 months just wasn't enough time for some universities and labs to really work through some of these programs with the applicants. So we took that into account. We're happy to offer 9 months now. We're hoping that allows for more opportunities at more facilities. But we do ask that the testing begins within 90 days of test plan approval. The goal here is still to meet current testing needs of the industry. And we don't just want to award someone support at a facility and for them to sit on it for 6 to 7 months just because it's only a 2-week test. So the goal is apply for what you need, get that support. If that support needs to last more than 6 months, that's okay now, but we still want you to be applying for appropriate technical assistance. Once we're done with testing, then there's the reporting phase. There's a post-access report required that is to be completed and submitted by the applicant, not the test facility. But we will ask the test facility to verify that the report is correct and that the applicant, the technical support recipient, I apologize, is not providing anything that wasn't done in the test or along those lines. So there's still a bit of work with the facility at that stage. And then the archiving of any relevant data to the Marine Hydrokinetic Data Repository, which is a site run by the Department of Energy and some of the national labs. That's where all the data from the testing will be reported or archived over time, as well as the post-access reports will be living on the TEAMER engineering page. So more to come on that. We're still working with the TEAMER team on finding the perfect spot and the right way to archive these projects over time. But that will be available to you all soon. So, and then the last bullet there is repeat. This is something that says here will be offered every 4 to 6 months over the next at least couple years. So then the point of that being as well that we want people to apply for current needs, not something that they see down the road. We want to offer many rounds of opportunity. The budget is quite large and adequate from the DOE, so we feel like we can support a lot of testing that's appropriate. And we want to make sure that we're addressing the current testing and expertise needs of the industry. So moving on to the facility roles and responsibilities. These are bullets that are, general in nature, and there may be other things that we ask over time of you all. But generally speaking, most of you have done most of these things already, so thank you very much. But providing the network director with information and capabilities, this is what we post on our website, and it's how the developers and researchers essentially, shop for their facility to get their support from. So the more detail or the more specific capabilities and attributes your facility have could be really helpful. And we ask that you would review what we've posted on the website. And we've posted what you've supplied, but if you have the opportunity to look at other facilities and see how they've described their capabilities and want to update yours, feel free, reach out to us, let us know. We can make those changes pretty quickly. The non-lab facilities, and that is anyone who's not a national laboratory. That doesn't mean just you're a lab. Non-lab means non-national laboratory. Work with us to finalize the master facility agreement. Most facilities have this in place. We're still working with a few, no problem. I'm very confident we'll get through all the paperwork and the contracting with you all in time for any requests for support. But the sooner we can engage in these discussions, the easier it is to work through them. National labs are a separate pathway for contracting. The national labs work through CRADAs, and that's something that they work with the applicant on, somewhat out of POET's domain once we get to that phase. So the next bullet here is consult with the applicants prior to submitting the application. So you all likely have seen that we posted an announcement that we'll be opening applications April 9th. We hope that this encourages people to start reaching out to the facilities for these discussions. So I imagine a lot of you on this call have already started talking with applicants for RFTS 3. But if not, you might expect to start hearing from them. If there's people that you've talked with in the past that want to use your facilities and funding has come up as a challenge for them, and maybe they don't know about TEAMER, or they don't understand that TEAMER is a venue to support their technology, this is a great time to reach out to them and say, take a look at TEAMER. Maybe this fits, maybe this works. Let us know if you have any questions about that. But facilities are certainly encouraged to reach out to participants, folks that they've worked with in the past that had ideas, things that they want to get tested, but for one reason or the other didn't get through. We encourage you all to work with those people to use TEAMER as that opportunity if it fits. So again, discussing their testing needs, decide whether their technical requests fall within your capabilities, and then also talking about the timeline here. So I've made it pretty clear that we want these tests to be of current needs. So if someone says, well, a year from now, after we test something else, we want to come back and test this, tell them to hold off and wait to apply for TEAMER support till the time is right, because there will be more opportunities moving forward. After the applications, we ask for a letter of response from the facilities. So that process is, we receive all the applications on May 9th. On or about May 10th or 11th, we'll reach out to all the facilities who have been indicated in those applications to ensure that you had your consultations with those applicants. That's a requirement of TEAMER. If you say in your letter of response that no, never heard of this person, didn't talk to them, then we throw that application out. We notify the applicant that they didn't meet that requirement, and we encourage them to reapply. But that's one of the requirements of the program. And then there's a few more items in the letter of response that I'll get to on potentially the next slide here. We ask that you work with the applicant to complete the test plan, and then new for RFTS 3, actually RFTS 2 facilities are asked to do this now too. We're asking that the facilities submit the test plan. For RFTS 1, if you participated in that, we weren't specific. Some facilities submitted the test plan, some applicants submitted the test plan. What we have found is that the test plans tend to be far more thorough and thought through all the details, like I spoke about earlier, are considered when the facility submits that plan. So moving forward, we are asking the facilities to take that role. That doesn't mean you need to do it yourself, though. We hope you will work with the applicant to submit that plan together. But coming from the facility, we expect a bit more detail and hopefully less revisions, hopefully less back and forth than we had for some of the RFTS 1 projects. And then we get into the assistance period. So once we get all the agreements in place, go do your work, work with the applicant as necessary, record the data, and then let them start working on the post-access reporting, which you will then review and approve before we sign off on them ourselves. We have a few other checks that we'll be doing as well. And then we have a post-access facility survey that we'll send you all. Really just that specific survey will be partially geared towards how did TEAMER work for you, any comments, complaints about the TEAMER program, but also how was it to work with this applicant. If we, due to the length of this program, we expect and we'll see multiple applications from the same applicant. And it's possible over time if there's applicants that were really hard to work with or came highly unprepared and ended up causing you to blow your budgets. Those are things that we consider moving forward. So those surveys are really valuable to us. And we haven't finished any projects yet, so we haven't actually sent any of these out, but we will be soon for RFTS 1 activities. This is a new slide for anyone who's been here before. Allowable facility costs. This has come up a few times. It's not a major problem, but we just wanted to let everybody know kind of what we're expecting as allowable costs from facilities. First off, obviously staffing costs, and those can include fringe and overhead rates are part of that staffing costs, and those are all fully acceptable. Facility day use rates, totally fine. We understand that's to use labs and tanks and other facilities. Feel free to bill us for those things. The materials and supplies. This is a point that's come up from a few different facilities over time, and we just wanted to give a bit of clarification here that you are allowed to bill for certain types of materials and supplies, things such as equipment and materials required to execute a test within the facility's approved capabilities. I think that makes sense. Those are allowable costs. If you need some nuts and bolts to hold a device in place, potentially a load cell that might be required for a test that you don't actually have, those are things that are likely allowable costs. Things that might not be allowable are supplies to increase or upgrade a facility's capabilities. So the easy one for me to point out here is we could, if someone came and said they want a 4-meter wave and your tank only makes 1 meter waves, we wouldn't be able to supply the funding to upgrade your wave maker, for example. But I think that's an extreme example, obviously, and there's going to be a lot of gray area here. But we want to let you know that certain materials and supplies are allowable. If in doubt, please reach out. I was just going to write that because I thought it rhymed and was cool, but I decided to say, let us know, contact us. We're happy to let you know if these costs are allowable or not. Because, we hate to get to the point where you're billing us for something and we say, well, that doesn't actually fit, that's not an approved cost. So we'd rather talk to you ahead of time, and that can come in the test plan phase, or that could come in the letter of response phase. Any of these things before we get into a final budget is a good time to have those conversations. Quick talk through the letter of response. This we'll actually be sending it to you via an online form. So this is just an example of some of the questions that'll be included on that letter of response. Essentially, who did you speak to at the institute, or who's the developer or researcher that is proposing the test? What type of support are they requesting? And then a lot of questions about, does your facility have the capability to support this? Do you have the man hours to complete the test? Do you have does the time frames work within your facility? And then we also ask for a ballpark budget. This is the first time we ask for a budget from the facility. And like I said, we don't expect this to be exact. We ask for you to give your best estimate within 20%, if possible, of what the budget will be for this actual test. We've seen quite a variance from the letter of response to the final budget, at least from our experience in RFTS 1. And our goal is really to try to narrow that delta over time with the facilities as you become more familiar with the program and the expectations of the applicants, to try to put a little more thought into what those budgets will be. We're rather generous originally with budgets that really fell outside that 20% range, and we have no direct plans to limit that, but we do have the opportunity to ask for reduced scopes if necessary, if the budgets are just completely out of realms of possibility and the change is so great between the letter of response and the final proposed budget. But we ask for you to consider things like materials and supplies and actual staffing requirements. A lot of times people say, the applicant will say, I need 40 hours of tank time. And you say, yeah, we have 40 hours of tank time. But then you actually think and work with them a little bit more to define what their test actually looks like. And once the test plan is submitted, the facility and the applicant realize they need 80 hours of test time. Well, now you've doubled your tank rates, at least, in the man hours, like the staffing hours to accomplish that test has gone up quite a bit. So we understand there's always going to be variability, but really trying to work with the applicant at that early phase to define what their plans are and how that can actually be achieved is worth all of our time and less headaches down the road if you could put a little more effort and thought into actually completing that budget in the earlier phases. Let me see here. And then lastly, any additional comments? And we're going to expand on this question a little bit now, moving forward after some further discussion with the technical board. We really like this. We're not asking the facilities to evaluate proposals from applicants. We understand that's our job, and it's you all are looking for the work at your facility. But if someone comes to you with a perpetual motion device that you just really, yeah, you could test it, you have the capabilities, and the letter of response sets you up to say that, yeah, you could test that device. But if you have suggestions or comments for how this should be viewed based on your discussions with the applicant, because you're the ones who are going to be speaking to the applicants ahead of time. We're just looking at the applications once they come in. Feel free to use that additional section to let us know what your thoughts are on the project. It's not a final say. Obviously, we'll still give the application a full review if it meets all the criteria to make it to a full review. But the feedback from a facility is certainly helpful, and it's been really helpful in the past, and hopefully we can continue and add on to that as we go. Talk about budgets a little bit now. So currently we're looking, like I said, this is about $13 million in testing and R&D support through 2022. We had in the past said that activities like modeling analysis and lab and bench testing had smaller budgets per se than a tank test. We're now, based upon experience, we realize that some modeling and expertise can cost just as much as working in a tank. So our goal here is we're asking that all testing, we recommend to cost less than $150,000 in support. So if someone comes to you with a project that just blows that out of the water, we suggest you talk with the applicant and say, we don't think TEAMER is going to support a $300,000 numerical modeling project, for example. Let's break this into multiple phases. Let's try to find a scope that's within the range of possibility, and you have a much higher likelihood of being awarded if that's the case. Like I said, these are recommended costs, so it's not a requirement, but that is something that will be considered in the review, and successful applications will certainly be within those ranges. Open water requests are going to be up to $250,000 just due to typically open water costs being higher with vessel rentals and all sorts of different requirements that go into that. Open water is something that we're still working on as a program. We are planning to offer open water support at a few select facilities very soon, actually. But open water testing will not be restricted to the request for technical support periods. Like it won't be RFTS 4 for open water support. It'll be open water RFTS, and the people will be allowed to apply at any time for open water support. And that a lot of that has to do with just the seasonality of a lot of the open water facilities and sites. We can only do certain types of testing at certain locations at certain times. So limiting that to specific time periods just makes it a bit harder. So we're actually excited to do open applications for open water testing, rolling applications for open water testing. The next point here, projects exceeding the budget ranges suggested must show high value to the industry at large. Like I said, we're not telling you can't apply for something more than 150,000, but it has to really provide a lot of value and be a really great project that that really could only be completed at a facility. There must be a real good reason for any TEAMER project to cost 150,000 or more. So let's take that as it is. Project durations for non-open water requests for technical support are now up to 9 months. We spoke about this earlier, but we do ask that the testing begin within 3 months. Again, hopefully this opens up some doors for new facilities and new opportunities to come in. And last point here is that budget is available for pre-assistance activities such as pre-RFTS consulting and test plan preparation. And this is something, if you're going to be spending a significant amount of time with the test plan, that could be included as your proposed budget, or you can also bill us separately for any of that pre-consulting time. If that's something that, I don't want to get into the details of that with you, but please feel free to reach out and we can talk about the best way to approach that. But we understand that there's a time commitment to working with these applicants, and we realize the value of working with the facilities prior to application and then working on the test plans together. And we don't want you all to think that we don't value that time and are able to support that time. There's certainly funding available to do that. So please feel free to reach out. We can talk more about the best ways to bill and invoice for that type of work. As you'll be consulting early with the applicants, it's always helpful for y'all to know what makes a good application. So, applications that clearly align with the goals of TEAMER, applications that define a clear technical objective for which TEAMER support will assist. This point can't be made stronger. Clarity in what you're trying to achieve and how TEAMER will help you achieve that is paramount to these applications. Obviously, showing a strong coordination with the facility is very important. The letter of response is a great opportunity for us to evaluate that. Include a clear description of why this is a logical next step in the technology's development. Also very important, the pathway towards commercialization is never a straight road, but there's generally a path that is a route that's taken, and designing something on a napkin to building it in your garage to throwing it into 3-meter sea states is not likely that path. So we encourage folks to, consider the technology out there, the modeling softwares that are out there, the capabilities that numerical modeling facilities have to really define and work out the details of a technology. Like I said, there's no straight path, but this is also something that we've seen and we think helps people put together better applications. So you're always encouraged to talk to the applicants as they're consulting with you about this as well. Obviously, the reasonable timelines that fit within the 9-month period, as well as providing value to the industry at large. Again, this is a publicly funded program that has goals of providing data and research to the community at large, and that's something that we feel is very important and will continue to use as an evaluation tool. This is just a quick page about what kind of agreements we'll have. Most of you are probably pretty familiar with this at this point, but just in case not, POET, which is us, Pacific Ocean Energy Trust, sorry. We work with the non-lab facilities to execute a master network facility agreement. That agreement essentially agrees to terms and conditions, data, IP, things like that we have in place. And then once we actually assign projects, once people have applied for testing at a specific facility, the test plan's been approved, then we will execute a task order specific to that actual project. Task order it's a very straightforward and simple process. Essentially defines what the final proposed budget is, a very general scope of work, who the representing parties are, and then we can go ahead and get started on the project. So lab facility, the national lab facilities are reimbursed separately from POET's funding from the Department of Energy. So we don't actually, the agreements, if you're working with a national lab, is the applicants would actually execute a cooperative research and development agreement, a CRADA, with that lab. But they actually work with contracting staff at the labs to do that, not necessarily with POET. And then the facility and the technical support recipients. So this is what agreements you are encouraged to have in place with the folks doing the work with you. National labs, like I said, will have the CRADA. Non-lab facilities execute whatever agreement is necessary to support the work. So we've seen joint work statements, NDAs, other just kind of facility agreements that are describe the rules of access and safety. And obviously COVID is a new clause that's included in a lot of these agreements as well. So this isn't something that POET necessarily has a role in, but we do encourage the facilities to provide that, offer that protection for themselves while they're working with external participants. I'm sure you all are very familiar with how this works, as you've done it many times before. And then POET and the technical support recipient may enter into agreements for reimbursements for travel and shipping if necessary. What we're currently asking as of today, as of before we go live with our applications on April 9th, is to review the website. We have everything up there that you've provided to us. Thank you again for your time to get us all that information, as well as all the information that we've provided to our NEPA documentation. We realize that, again, this is another time commitment that you've put in. We thank you for it. So take some time to go through the website, take a look at what we have up there, look at the other pages. Like I said, if you feel like you offer unique capabilities that aren't, greatly highlighted, let us know. We think that's a great opportunity for a lot of these facilities to stand out. So we just don't have the bandwidth or the knowledge of all your facilities to do that. So this is really a point where we ask you all to make your experience better by identifying what you can offer to the network. If we haven't finalized our agreements, let's continue to work on that as we approach RFTS 3. Promote your facilities as part of the TEAMER network. If you have your own social media pages or newsletters, if you work with industries that aren't typically part of marine energy, but you think that they could have interest in the TEAMER program, we certainly encourage you to reach out and identify what TEAMER is. If they want to know more about the program, they're always encouraged to reach out to us too. So it's a great opportunity for us all to work together to try to offer as much support as we can throughout the program. And then lastly, to work with the applicants to define their RFTS 3 requests. And that, like I said, that starts at the pre-consultation period, but then continues through the development of the test plan. The role of the facility cannot be understated here. Your expertise is why these folks are applying for support, and we hope and expect that you all will be able to provide it quite well. Lastly, if you don't already, if you're into the social media thing, that's how you find us. We do provide email updates. You can sign up if you're not part of our mailing list. There's a link at the bottom of the TEAMER webpage for how to sign up for that. This is where we send out notifications for the application periods. We send out general updates on projects that have been awarded. and just general communication with the TEAMER program is really started at the mailing list and then updated throughout our social media platforms. As you can see, myself and Sam Quinn are great points of contact. Feel free to reach out directly, as well as through our website. We have a contact page as well. And I think that's it. That's certainly the last slide. Happy to answer any questions. I don't see that any came in, so happy to stick around for a few minutes if anyone would like to type in a question. If not, if you don't want to make it public, feel free to contact us. And if like I said, I'll stick around for a few minutes, but if there's no other questions, thank you all again for your participation and you're taking the time to join us today. And we look forward and hopeful that you get lots of opportunities to work with TEAMER over time. So thank you very much. All right, well, we'll just call it up. We'll call it there. Feel free to reach out if you need to. We're always around. This is what we do most of our time these days. So hope everybody's well and staying safe, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.